All right. Hey, welcome to the podcast and little chat we're gonna have here today with a good friend of mine, an agent that I've worked with, but also have trained with, have been choked out by, have tapped to. A guy who's a beast on and off the mat, my buddy Paul. How are you today, Paul?
I'm great, Michael. Thank you for having me.
For sure,
Good to
man.
be
So,
here.
yeah, I'm stoked we're finally doing one of these with you, man. So, I mean, let's talk.
Finally.
You're a patriot. You served in the U.S. Army and then transitioned to healthcare before real estate. I guess what I always ask you, and I'm always curious because, my man, you have a great gig with healthcare and what you've been doing for your last couple of years and also being a professor. What journey or lessons, from the military shaped kind of your work ethic through all of those things is kind of, I guess, my first question for you.
So I joined in '92, right? And I
Yeah.
joined the Army. I wanted to
Yeah.
be, went to the different services. I wanted to be a pilot, and I goofed around in high school. It's like a lot of people. I had a blast, but I goofed around. Didn't get the greatest grades. Didn't take it too seriously. Um, and then when I went to the Navy, I said I want to be a pilot. After watching, an Officer and a Gentleman and Top Gun, and all was cool. And they asked,
Right.
"Well, do you have a degree?" And I said, "No." They said, "Well, you can't be a pilot." And I was like, "Okay, whatever." And I walked out. So just not being patient and not understanding and not willing to take the time to understand that, oh, maybe I can go back. And I think those lessons, it's like I was either good at it, like math and all those subjects, or whatever it was. I was either good at it, you're either or you're not.
Yeah.
There really was. I didn't have an understanding of like I can get good at this if I went back and I just wanted to move on with my career. So I joined the Army.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
I didn't fly, but in there I started getting a little bit more mature, a little bit more mature. Not much, a little bit more discipline. Because if I would have went straight from high school into a 4 year university, I probably wouldn't have made it.
Yeah.
I was just too anxious, and I was all over the place.
Yeah.
So I started taking classes when I was in the military, since they paid for it while I was in there. I was like,
Right.
oh, now I want to go back and take, and start working on my taking college courses.
Yeah.
I barely knew what that was, college, but nobody ever explained it to me.
Did you grow up in the
So
Bay Area?
I did. I grew up out in Tamales,
Okay. Got
Tamales
it.
Bay. Went to Tamales High School.
Yeah. 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 Okay.
Uh,
Awesome, man. Awesome. And yeah, so I mean, how long did you serve in the army? Then
8 years,
eight
from
years.
'92 to 2000.
Okay. Okay. Did you meet your wife in that time?
I did.
Okay.
Within the
Awesome.
first year, I was stationed in Korea.
Oh, no
She's from
way.
South Korea. Yeah,
How long you guys been together now, man?
32 years.
Wow, dude. You got to teach me the secrets. We're gonna
Yeah,
we're gonna get another call
93.
and I'm gonna ask you about that.
Yeah. No,
Yeah, making that last.
yeah,
That's
30,
awesome.
32 years.
What a blessing, dude. That's awesome. So, I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, you've grown from that, shaped your work ethic because now you went to school. Now you're teaching school. The irony here is that you were kind of not saying you hated school, but you just had a lot of fun having fun, perhaps, right? Now you're essentially a professor, right? Or you are a professor, which is
Yeah,
so
yeah,
funny.
adjunct faculty, yeah, teaching in the rad tech program. It's funny how that works.
Yeah, the irony there is so funny. So, I mean, I guess, with your communications and your background in that, and of course the military skills, how does that translate into your role as a realtor and coach? And how do you use that teaching method that I guess I'm assuming you level with people and kind of build that bridge through that somehow, right? You know, can you share a bit about how you do that?
Yeah, I mean, I just listen to what people want, and I just don't lie to them about anything. I just basically I just tell them the truth.
Yeah,
You know, I
yeah,
said, I just listen to them, and hopefully they trust my opinion.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
and I don't want to say, don't buy this house or buy that house or whatever.
yeah.
But I tend to spend time with them on a
Okay.
personal level.
Yeah,
Just talk about family and life and stuff.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
and say, hey, whenever you're ready, here it is, and I follow up with them, and don't. I'm not pushy about stuff at all. I say, hey, if you don't like this one, if you ever have anything, I'm here. You
And
know.
and you have the experience too, I know from the properties that you own, right? Because you have a few properties yourself. You have a
Oh
few
yeah,
rentals in your
yeah,
primary home. So, I mean,
yeah.
you're able to share kind of the wisdom of building that portfolio with them as well, starting with the first property and then, of course, moving on, right? You know, I guess the question, just not to jump around, but a question I have is, how do you see the wine country market now, where you have those properties and, kind of, how does home selling here, differ from what you see or hear about in the larger California or maybe the United States as a whole market? Because we know the market's kind of in a lot of shifts, right?
Right, right.
What are you seeing in Sonoma, Napa, or specifically, I know throughout the Santa Rosa area? What are you seeing that is kind of
More
shaping
so
things?
just vacation homes like Airbnb.
Yeah, you've seen a lot of that
I mean,
still.
I turned one of my properties into an Airbnb a few years ago.
Yeah,
It was very, very good. The majority of visitors that stayed there just wanted to come out and visit wine country.
right,
Right
right.
now, as far as people looking for a home to be in the wine country, it's a little scarce.
Yeah,
Because it is very expensive.
yeah,
Very expensive. It's beautiful, but at the same time, um, not many people are moving here like I thought would be.
yeah,
You know, for the
yeah,
beauty of it, they're being more practical with the economy and
yeah.
and where they live. I had a lot of people from Southern California that were interested, and they're just like, we just can't right now. They're staying. They're everybody's just staying put.
It seems like that's a big thing in the market. We're sharing this earlier. You and I were talking about this just a moment ago. It's kind of like they're concerned about the recession or looming recession, what's going on with global and I think local economics, right? And so they're concerned about what's next. It's the market to shake up so bad, but I think most people are fearing the most recent recession we had versus where we are today. Um, and that's my opinion, but like we're seeing, home prices are going to drop. Well, we're seeing home prices come down from a peak, but they still, in most cases, have more equity than they had a year ago or the year prior because we had such hyper appreciation. So we're seeing a
Right.
correction, sure, but there's still more opportunity in buyers. I mean, is there anything that you're sharing with people right now to try to get them off the fence that you're finding working at all? Or is there anything that, any thoughts that you have surrounding that?
Well, I
Um,
mean, it's just explaining to them that okay, what the majority of people are doing, you generally don't want to do that, in some situations,
it's true.
if everybody's waiting and everybody's fearing, I'd say personally, those were the times that I did buy properties
Yeah.
when during the pandemic, during the Silicon Valley, bubble
Yeah.
during all these times where
Yeah.
everything was, basically like a dumpster fire, and then everybody was freaking out, and I was like, that's when you buy it because when everybody's talking about it, everybody's headed towards the prices are going up.
Yeah.
Even with a lower interest rate, you wait for that lower interest rate, more competition.
Yeah.
You're not going to get the house you want. You're paying more. And
Yeah.
I actually show them on paper, this is how much you'll pay if you wait for the rates to come down. So as I listen to your team, the people you trust,
Yeah.
your agent, your lender, your broker.
Yeah.
The time to buy generally is, when they say you're ready
Hmm.
and you have fear.
Yeah.
That's it's almost like the time to buy these things is when you just got that you got those butterflies and you're just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's always worked out for me.
And I can see that. And I mean, I know that as well from my own experience. And this is kind of a quote that I just want to share real quick. And it kind of goes to what you're saying, right? I mean, but be fearful when others are greedy and greedy when
Yeah,
others are fearful. And I mean, we could dive deep into this and, just kind of sharing real quick, that thought though, but really it's true. I mean, if you look at past
yeah,
recessions and past figures that we've had, you tend to see home prices go up in recessionary periods versus go down, with the exception of the great financial crisis, which was brought on by the real estate industry, right? And so
Yeah.
I think you're 100% right. And the way that you do it, man, I mean, I got to had tip my hat to you and just say you do it so well when you share with people, because it's something that I find is a need in this industry with most folks that we work with, is simply be real. Share with them the honest truth. It's not always what they want to hear sometimes, but if you could gently lead and instruct and just share, hey, this is where the market is likely to go. We don't have a crystal ball, but where are you right now? Do you want to
Yeah.
really buy a property? If you're ready now, then would you at least look at figures, or maybe just kind of unpack your budget? We could help with that. I know you like helping with that as well. Big Dave Ramsey fans, both of us, and just sharing with them like, hey, like at the end of the day, your overall investment, if you buy a property today for 600K at a 7% rate, that payment is very close to what it would be a year from now when rates come down to 5% or whatever it may be.
Right. Right.
At $100,000 more, you would spend that much more in the gained equity in that time, and I think it's a big thing. And to that front, knowing your background, I mean, you specialize in helping those that served our great country, both, those that are veterans or active duty. What unique challenges do you see in the market? And what do you do to tailor your support for them in even a market like this, knowing those things?
Well, it's great with veterans, using, taking advantage of the VA, of a VA loan,
Yeah,
with no money down,
yeah,
with and then you could get ahead, live it, buy a property, live in it for a year, and then rent it out, sell it, buy another one. So that's what I did, and
yeah,
that's it wasn't my first property that I bought in 2003 when I bought it, kind of at the height before everything kind of went south.
yeah,
But in 2016, when I met you,
yeah,
and I said, I came up to you at jiu-jitsu and I said, hey, I only want to buy a house.
yeah,
I think that's what it was. Oh, you're selling houses. I want to buy one. You know,
yeah,
I guess
yeah.
sometimes it's that easy. Didn't you see it? I was like, oh, cool. Well, and then we'll get on it.
Yeah, I was
You
just stoked to work with you. I was blessed that you'd asked me. I love training with you.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just like time on and off the mat. I remember it well,
Yeah.
and I actually remember some of it so well. I remember going to Sacramento, I think, to watch Brett fight in
Mhm.
a sub pro tournament. And I
Oh,
think we were
yeah.
driving out there, and I think your transaction was going on around then. And yeah, it's funny just to think about that. But it is like that's the cool thing about our industry, I think, where I mean, we're really, in this industry blessed to be able to do what we do because we're helping people that we care about into properties. We're even selling properties, right?
Yeah.
That really kind of help better their situation. And that property now, I mean, the equity that you gain in that property is,
Yeah.
I mean, it's been 9 years. It's crazy. I mean,
I
to
know.
see how much
Yeah.
equity you gained in that, right? I think it's
I
like,
know.
yeah, I was looking at that the other day when I was doing analysis through a program we use called HomeBot. I'm like, dang, good for you, man.
That,
Um,
that was definitely that helped tremendously. And it wasn't like I said, had this crystal ball or any kind of plan.
yeah.
It's just like, oh, we're going to buy a house because we did have one that we foreclosed on
Mhm.
during the housing crisis.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I learned a ton about the market, even though I wasn't in real estate at that time.
Yeah.
And even when I bought the second one, it wasn't until a few years later,
Yeah.
that I got into. My wife's been telling me this for 30 some odd years. Get your real estate license. And I was like, oh yeah, and I had this vision of what realtors do, and I was like, well, I'm gonna be more practical. And there was a time where I had a friend, and he was getting out of the military, and he was going back to Arizona to do real estate, and everything. I'm kind of like fly by the seat of my pants. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go with you, and I'm gonna do this.
Yeah.
I ended up changing my mind and re-enlisting at the last moment. And
Well,
a couple of months later, he came back and said, "Oh, it didn't work out." So I was like, "See, I kind of put a bad taste in my mouth, and I didn't know anything about it.
yeah.
Just like a lot of careers or subjects, it's just like
Yeah.
real estate's this and this, and I thought I knew what it was.
Mhm.
And finally, right before the pandemic, I said, "Well, you know what? Why not?" After being in our house, I guess we do know a little bit. Well,
Yeah.
maybe a lot about, so I'm just going to go for it. and got my license, and I've loved it. I just love to see and help other people be successful. I
Yeah.
don't want to see them struggle. I say, hey, this is a way. This is a way where you don't have to, grind and struggle. It's a starting point.
Yeah.
Or someone's looking for a home and say maybe it'll be like, maybe a condo right away. Get your foot in the door.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's tough because people, they want that big dream house right away. And it's just, especially now, everything is getting so far out of reach. It's like, get in with what you can,
Mhm.
you know. There's going to be some suffering,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
there's going
I
to
will
be some
say,
sacrifice.
as someone that watched you from when you started, you grew substantially, really quickly. And I guess the question I would have is, you know, um, how did you do that? Was it just reaching out to people you knew, people you were hanging out with, people you were on the mat with, people at work? How were you kind of planting that seeds? What were you doing to help activate that book of business?
Basically, I just had a conversation. It's just now, it just almost naturally led to, what's your situation?
Yeah.
Are you looking for a house?
Yeah.
Anybody?
Yeah.
And more so was it was being at the hospital, and jujitsu, knowing so many people.
Yeah.
You bought my bump into someone in the Safeway,
Mhm.
and I said, "Oh, how you doing? Or what you do? What you doing these days? Oh, you do real estate? Oh, yeah, we're thinking. Oh, we
Yeah.
already have a house. Well, you want an investment property?"
Yeah.
And then like something clicks.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
go,
Yeah.
actually, yeah. Had people just call up, be like, can you get us a house? You know,
Awesome.
uh, and just to see, people were renting for decades.
Yeah.
They were renting for decades, and the landlord decided to sell the property, do something with it.
Yeah.
They were in a really precarious situation,
Yeah.
and I know yeah, we can help you. We
Yeah.
can help you. And they're just over the moon. They're they're so happy. The dad has his garden and his plants, and it's just like they're finally have their dream home.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Sometimes, yeah, so it doesn't have to be the mansion up on the hill or whatever. It's just, your home.
Yeah.
It's something. This floor is mine. This yard is mine. I can do what I want with it. And there's going to be things you got to take care of, but it's you just keep going.
Yeah.
I didn't got to like, oh, I'm gonna get 5 houses, or I'm gonna get, it's like, oh, okay, I learned the process, and all I do is just rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
It just, okay, we'll try this. We'll rent that out. We'll Airbnb it while we get another one. And I love to crunch numbers too. I absolutely love, just like when I was couldn't do it, didn't have the patience to do it when I was younger. Um, but I just love running numbers, and it's just like, hey, let's take a look at this.
Yeah.
Wow, we can do this. You can do more things than you think is possible. It's just take your time, be willing to fail, and retrack your steps.
Yeah. Yeah.
And hey, look, let's problem solve. So I always think of it, let's problem solve this, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Your house, your living situation.
Yeah.
Uh, let's I tried to become a problem solver instead of hoping that problems don't ever happen in life.
Mhm.
That doesn't work out too well. And the first thing, it's like, oh man, what, I have bad luck. I was like, no, you probably made poor decisions. And I look back at everything, and I was like, yeah, this comes from making all the poor, almost all the poor decisions you could possibly make, and just saying, no, never again is that happening. you
Let, let,
know
let's go over this, man, because I see you win a few times where I didn't think you would, candidly. Not because I didn't have faith in you, but I just was like, we're up against a lot. How are you going to make this happen? And you're just like on it, dude. And loved it every single time because it was cool to watch and be kind of working with it at the same time. But let's talk about, man, your secret sauce: consultation, strategy, and negotiation. How do you win so much, dude?
I, I don't know. Look at it like that. I'm just like, it's just almost never enough. But until I tell myself that, what, the clients that I'm working with,
Yeah.
and I know it's kind of a kind of a marketing gimmick, but it's not. It's true. It's just like I learned this in the course that I take, and the course that I took a couple of years ago. Through the brokerage. I forget what it is now, Rotini or something like that.
Was it
But
Buffini?
Buffini,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
The one of the things that stuck with me is just like, you are my priority.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and I really mean it. Yeah, it's a line, but I really mean it. I'm like, I'm working with you. I really, no matter how many I'm working with, you're my focus.
Right.
When I wake up in the day, when I go to sleep at night, always thinking, what can I do to, if I maybe I can just stop by or have lunch. Let's hey, let's meet up, just like you do.
Yeah.
I learned a lot of that from you.
Hmm.
Let's just keep talking. I'll call you. I'll call you every week, check in with you.
Mhm.
And I think everything else will take care of itself.
Yeah.
Um, that they're willing to open up to you and say, hey, finding out what they want. What are you looking for?
Yeah.
Just a simple, what do you want? What are you looking for? How's your job going? What do you want to do?
Oh.
Just asking them these personal questions and just getting to know these people, you know?
Yeah, man. I mean, well, a question to that then, a follow-up question, I guess, would be like, I mean, you know, you're an agent, you're a professor, you're still at the hospital, got an amazing wife, great kids. How do you balance all that out? And how do you balance that without burning out? I guess is the question, man. How do you
I
keep
wake up
balancing
early.
both?
I probably only sleep about 4 hours.
Okay.
That's just me.
Yeah, man.
I get excited.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
I get excited. I don't want to. I'm like a little kid. Like, I don't want to sleep because I don't want to miss anything. So I'm like trying to stay awake.
Yeah.
But understanding, it's like, oh yeah, I gotta sleep, and I'm like, I
Yeah.
get cranky. But then I
Yeah.
get up, and I was like,
Yeah.
okay, so I'm up at 6:30. Like, I slept in this morning. I think it was till 7 o'clock. You
Wow.
know,
Yeah.
I had to go get my oil changed and stuff.
Yeah.
It's just all this time where I can clear my mind and think.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I listen to my podcasts. I can go over my lists, my to do. And I make lists.
Go.
Of what I'm going to do during the week,
Yeah.
and
So
I
you
try
plan
to.
ahead.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you plan ahead. Okay.
I plan.
Good.
Some days it's like, well, I don't have anything planned, so I'm going to go golfing. But even when I'm doing that, if whatever I'm doing, I'm thinking, hey, what about the property? What can I do?
That's a great
Or
question. Well, that's a question for you then,
yeah,
if I can, just to ask, man. So you're into golf. I know that. We still have to go golfing. We've trained
yeah,
jujitsu together for, gosh, 10 years.
oh yeah,
I mean, even with the distance, but I've known you from jujitsu. I met you in jujitsu, when I was a white belt. But I mean, those are two huge passions. Would you say that, they're impacting your mindset and resilience during deal negotiations and things of balance and all that? I mean, how do they play a role, do you think, for everything else that you're doing?
I think, I mean, you only have so many. If you have 8 hours a day to work and do
Yeah.
that, but you can overlap many things.
Right.
Jiu-jitsu, it's the same thing. It's just helping people.
Yeah.
It's just helping people, learning. Oh, asking questions.
Yeah.
Say I go out to the golf course. I look at it's a chance to clear my mind,
Yeah.
kind of I don't want to say take my focus off, but kind of use my peripheral vision. At night when you're trying to look at something in the dark, especially
Yeah.
like night vision or whatever,
Yeah.
look off to the side.
Yeah.
Get away from it for a little bit.
Yeah.
There's a thing that John Cleese said about Alfred Hitchcock. When he was doing his writing,
Mhm.
he said he would just come up with something just off the wall, and people would get upset. And we're thinking we're pressing too hard to try to be creative.
Yeah.
It's like let's just talk about something else. It might be totally off the wall, and even that, and it's not guaranteed. It
Yeah.
might lead to like a breakthrough.
Yeah.
I meet people. I
Yeah.
go out, and it's like, yeah, it's a little bit nerve wracking. Sometimes I go out to the course, and I'm just with a group of people I don't even know. I
Yeah.
go out there by myself. It's great. It's
I love
great.
it.
Sometimes you don't want to talk about it, and then you learn from that too. You start talking to them about, they start talking to you. You start exchanging information, having fun.
Yeah.
And if you're not having some fun with it, it's like just try to find a way. Try to find a way. Sometimes people, especially when they've been in business and everything, I understand some of them don't want to talk at all.
Yeah.
They just want to go play. But the
Right.
most of the people, they're just at least interested, and you can get some feedback. So even when I'm out playing or goofing off or whatever,
Yeah.
you know, that I can get something back. I can take something out of that experience and bring it back to the table.
Love it, man.
I don't know
Love
what
it.
that is, what that's going to be or whatever, but
Yeah.
I've met people out there that, we've talked a lot of real estate, and I learn a lot of things.
Yeah.
Con- Construction,
Yeah.
um, flipping homes.
Yeah.
I could spend 18 holes, with a great friend of mine who taught me so much about, doing building homes and everything. And that helps.
So
Understanding what the costs of lumber and supplies and contracts. And then I get a client.
yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, it's that ever learning thing, right? Like you're
Yeah.
always learning. You can't stop learning. And I love that because that's how you know. I mean, is a science guy, science background. I mean, if you don't continue to work something, eventually it's just going to die. Right. So you
Yeah,
want to
exactly.
continue to hone that skill, man. That's huge. I love that.
I run into a client who now they want to build,
Yeah.
at least I know a good foundation of what it is.
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
at least know somebody that I can go, hey, I know a guy.
Yeah.
I know a guy I can put you in contact with, and he'll tell you about the meters, about the square footage, about the, you got to go to the city if you got to see what, how what the zoning is for it,
Yeah. Yeah.
and even that, something I learned on the golf course,
Love it.
so it's fascinating. I'm very
Love it.
grateful that I'm out and get
Yeah.
to do those things,
So
you
I
know.
guess my question is your favorite local spot now, the golf course, man?
It's one of them. That's where I go to. I try to get there every morning,
Do you really?
at least hit a bucket of balls or work on
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. I
It
love that, dude. That's
does get
awesome.
expensive, so I might just go to the golf mart and hit off the rangefinder. It's free. You know,
Exactly, dude. Yeah,
I'm
we golfed.
annoying.
There's always we golf too, right?
Yeah, I'm annoying. I was like, oh, I just run in there and I just do it for free and then I leave. But
Yeah,
I spent a lot of money there in the past, so
that's awesome. All
they
right, so
tolerate.
there you go, man.
Yeah,
Are you seeing any trends in wine country this summer? Anything the kind of that you got eyes on? Anything that
it's
share with
slow.
clients right now? Slow.
It's slow. I don't see as many tourists, and I think that just has to do with everybody looking at their pocketbooks.
Yeah, it's finally
Uh,
catching
it,
up with them, which means recession, which
yeah,
means maybe lower interest rates, more buyers coming back into the
yeah.
market, hopefully, right? Um,
Hopefully, and just with everything in the world going on right now,
yeah,
it'll probably continue to go on, but quickly, thing narratives change,
yeah,
within a matter of days, weeks,
yeah,
onto the next thing. You
100%.
know, every time something happens, or there's a tariff or anything, people are like, whoa, 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 it's World War III, or it's this or that,
Yeah, yeah,
and then after a while they kind of, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was, and then it's
dude.
the next. So a lot of these black swan events have been really hitting portfolios, I would say.
Well, it's
Yeah,
all headline too.
of
90%
course.
of it is headline and it's literally not even
Mhm.
doing the data. And that's why I tell people, someone who
Right.
analyzes mortgage and, I'm a certified mortgage advisor, I'm writing a book on the Federal Reserve. These things are things I'm passionate about. I've been watching for years. I look at them like,
I get first copy. You get
I'll
a
make
book,
sure you
I
get
get
a
a
copy
copy of it.
for sure, man. I'm trying to wrap it up. It just there's things that just kind of come in that slows it down, but
Yeah.
definitely, man, I'll probably send you the draft to let you proof it for me, actually.
Yes. Oh, that'd be awesome. The night
But
was humid.
yeah, what's funny, man, because like all the stuff, and I remember I went to Ventura on a little week vacation with my wife and kids, and I remember texting Joe, who's kind of watching the fort, and it's like, hey, just get ready, 10-year treasuries, watching futures on a Sunday night,
Yeah.
and a comment was made, so then the 10-year treasury went down to 3.87 the next, and I said, to Joe, my assistant, hey, get ready. We're probably gonna get a bunch more refinances in, because we fit 17 in a week when they dropped
Yeah.
because of a headline a month before. Here we are a month later, and it went from like 4.3 to 3.85 or 3.875 Sunday night. Wake up Monday morning because the headline changed and the 10-year treasury was back to 4.35.
Yeah.
So it was that much of a swing just because of two separate headlines that made news and made their way into the media. And then, of course, everything shifted because of that. So it's things need to calm down. I tell people, and this is my opinion, take it for what it is. It's a pendulum. You hit that pendulum super hard, it will be rocking side to side. Eventually, it slows down and evens out. Just takes time,
Yeah.
right? But
But if you
yeah,
can learn, but if you can stomach it and understand, when there's when there's blood in the streets, buy property. I know kind of a brutal saying, but it's true. It's true. When everybody doesn't want it, and it's like you got to look at the data, like you said. Look at the data,
yeah,
and that'll tell you if you're listening to the news. By the time it gets to the news, and it spreads, and it's just panic in the market, and the understanding the fear and greed, and especially what's going on right now.
yeah,
Everybody just kind of want to sit still and hoping for the best.
right.
You know.
But remember,
Also,
news isn't news. It's new, not new stuff. It
right?
happened yesterday or 5, 10 minutes ago, an
Yeah,
hour ago, right? But they're reporting on it now. And
yeah.
I was always taught that, but it's true. And they're selling ratings at the end of the day. It's not really
Oh, of
news.
course.
I don't care if we're watching Fox or CNN or Newsmax or any of the other, news, what we would call legacy media outlets, but they're all just sharing stuff because they're selling news and ratings. They have to make a profit. So they're going to sell what sells. Unfortunately, fear is that item that sells so well that they'll continue to do it
Yeah.
because it creates the profit.
But it
Um,
also, again, if you look at you look at the trends,
yeah,
and you look at understanding every time there is a headline, and understanding and having a good understanding that you can do very well
100%.
if you it's like when you're afraid, when everybody's running away from stuff. It's like, hey, maybe you can prepare for that next moment.
Thousand percent.
There's a lot of years and situations where I'm like, okay, when there's something going on and it's an opportunity,
Yeah.
it can be an opportunity for you, your family, and your future.
Yeah, man.
Not
Yeah.
when the news is telling you, because
Yeah.
you're just chasing a ghost.
Last,
And people tend to lose.
last question I got for you then, man, would be one piece of advice you give yourself, younger self.
Oh
So if you
gosh,
had to tell
one
18-year-old
piece of
Paul,
advice.
yeah, bro, what would you say?
Oh, just relax and take it easy. Just be patient.
Yeah.
Be patient. I have no patience. You know, I've had to learn that over decades, a little bit of patience, and still, it's tough because you want the instant gratification,
Yeah.
and you're not willing to wait. Like, I got to get out of here. I want this now,
Yeah.
which, it doesn't, it could lead to, not saying it'd be bad,
Right.
but understanding, how, I guess, how understanding how life works. And, you're not going to know that when you're younger. I think it's a good time to just try to make smart moves,
Right.
right? You're gonna fail. You're gonna get cheated. You're gonna
Yeah.
lose money.
Yeah.
It's like, listen to people who know,
Yeah.
read more, read more, from Warren Buffett, exercise more, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
exercise a lot, when you're younger, should be focusing on studying and lifting weights,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I should
Well,
have played
again,
more
100%.
golf, but
Yeah.
who
Me too,
knows?
man. Me too.
I love playing football, so
Yeah.
hey, I was gonna be, an all-American or whatever, but
Yeah.
most people I know just say, I would have picked up a set of golf clubs, but
Yeah.
just being patient with people, you know,
Yeah.
and just doing the best you can every day,
100%.
and listening, having, I didn't want to listen. I was like, it's anything that was like uncomfortable, I didn't want to hear. I was like,
Yeah.
you know, and
Yeah.
along the way, I, didn't listen to some good people, and I kind of made amends. They didn't remember anything about it, and I've been carrying that burden for like 25 years. And I'm like, hey, I'm sorry about. They're like, what are you talking about? They don't see that at all. You know,
Yeah.
um, leaders in the military. I had a few of them that were just amazing. I always think, I could have done better. I could have worked harder.
Yeah.
So, but you know what? I learned lessons from that I can apply to this day.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
think through things, take your time.
Yeah.
Ask
100.
yourself, do I have, John Cleese said this, it's like, okay, the more time you have, the more creative you can be. He used to talk about uh, he talked about the people on Monty Python, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and the cast and the writers and everything. He said he could always come up with something more creative because he just put himself in a place where he had more time. He
Right.
put himself in this mode. It's not about like your intelligence above a certain minimal level. It has nothing to do with it. It's just your ability to put yourself in this zone. So, and if
Yeah.
you can calm yourself and
Yeah.
listen and everything,
Yeah.
that's a lot to ask, of a 17, 18-year-old kid,
Well, train
you know?
jujitsu early because if you're in jujitsu, you're in a compromised spot and you have to figure out how to breathe so you don't tap
Right.
and give up your match, right? And so, I mean, that's one thing that jujitsu teaches so well, I think, and a lot of martial arts, just the discipline,
Yeah.
right? So that's huge, man. All right, so where could people contact you, man? How do you prefer to be contacted, and where
Uh,
could they find you?
you go to my website and leave me a message at Paul Sells 707.com is my website,
Cool. I'm gonna include that below
or
this when we
Paul
post this.
Sells 707 at gmail.com.
Okay, they can email you. Perfect. Yeah, I'm gonna make
Yeah,
sure that's
email me,
at the base of the
text
description.
me if you need to. I look at my phone, I'm here. You can text me at 3 a.m. and I'll probably be awake, or I'll call you right when I wake up at 6:30 or 7 o'clock.
Well, you go to bed at 11, so you're up at 3. That makes sense, right?
11.
So,
I don't get off the days that I do have to work. I get off at like 11, come home at midnight, stay and watch Netflix and Amazon Prime till like 2:30 or 3 o'clock.
and then you wake up at 6:30. Wow, dude.
Yeah, wake up at 6:30.
I go to
I'm
bed at
bored.
9. I go to bed at 9. I wake up at 4:30 these days.
Uh, Last night, because I went to jujitsu last night, I went to bed a little bit early. I went to bed at midnight. So I'm going back tonight. So
Nice, man. We'll get that training in. Paul, thank
I
you so
will.
much for your time, brother. I appreciate
Thank
this
you for
so much.
having me. It was
Absolutely.
great.
Yeah, definitely, man. We'll do it again.
All right.